video today, and I'm pretty certain I can't think of the titles of the videos off the top of my head, but I've covered this subject probably at least a half a dozen times, either as the main topic of the video or as a secondary topic. But a lot of people always want to ask me, Alan, well, the most simplest question I get asked a lot is, ARC, what is your specific definition of an alpha male? Or from reading my books, number one, if you own all of my books, you already should know my definition and description of an alpha male. You shouldn't even have to ask me. If you own all of my books, you should know how I define an alpha male. If you own Mo 1, Ooh Said Again, The Possibility of Sex, The Beta Male Revolution, and more recently, No Free Attention, you should know my general definition and description of an alpha male. But when I did my Patreon exclusive live stream, we briefly got on this subject for a bit. And then I've listened to excerpts of different people's podcasts and live streams where they had definitions and descriptions of an alpha male that are totally different from mine. Totally different from mine. But what really sparked it, I was doing a consultation session with a client, and he just simply asked me, he said, excuse me, Alan, maybe I'm just not getting it, but what is so significant about presenting yourself as an alpha male to women? Like, what's the main benefit of it? That's what I'm not getting. What's the main benefit versus a beta man? Is it that you'll have sex with more women? Is it that women will just naturally be more obedient to you? What I'm not understanding what the benefit of being alpha is versus being beta. Because I feel like you're always going to have a percentage of women that are going to look at you as alpha and a percentage of women that are going to look at you as beta. So I kind of feel like it's out of your hands. I don't necessarily feel like I really can control if I'm alpha or if I'm perceived as an alpha or perceived as a beta. He said, I feel like that's all, just like they say, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. He said, I feel like alpha and beta is in the eyes of the beholder, meaning the eyes of women. He said, I think that's something that women determine more so than us men determine. And to a certain extent, he's right. And I told him that. I wouldn't say he's 100% correct, but to a large extent, he's right. As it relates to dating and relationships, see, first of all, and I said this a long time ago, I think when I first got on YouTube, and even before I got on YouTube, when I had my Blog Talk Radio show, I used to talk about this. See, there's different types of alpha. See, a lot of guys think there's just like one type, like there's, an alpha male, somebody who's an alpha male across the board. No. There's very few guys who are an alpha male like in all aspects of their life. If anybody attended the 21 convention in 2018 in Orlando, Florida, that was part of my speaking presentation. Because guys, I was talking about how a lot of guys will evaluate how alpha a guy is based on his physicality. Based on his physicality, such as how either one of these two things usually, how tall he is and or how muscular he is. How tall he is and or how muscular he is. And I basically said in my speaking presentation, I said, that's bullshit. I've known a lot of guys in my life that were tall and or muscular that were not alpha with women. A lot of those guys might have been alpha with other men, but with women, they weren't alpha. I've seen guys be straight up beta with women that were tall and or muscular. Matter of fact, that's one of my 3 things I was going to touch on in this video. It's basically, when it comes to definitions, the criteria for what makes up an alpha male that tend to be different than my own. Here, I would narrow it down to these 3 areas. Number 1, a lot of guys will call a guy an alpha male if he has a high degree of career success, financial success, and overall business success. Career success, financial success, and overall business success. For me, that has nothing to do with being an alpha with women. Nothing. Honestly, that has very little, if anything, to do with being an alpha with women. And I've said that for probably the last 20 years. Second deviation from my definition and description would be what I just mentioned. Would be categorizing a guy as alpha based on a combination of how tall he is and how muscular he is. How tall he is and how muscular he is. Now, I'm not going to say those 2 things have nothing to do with being perceived as an alpha male, because that would be a lie. But at the same time, they're not as important as some guys think they are. They are important. They are a contributing factor, but they're not as significant as some men think they are. Then the final one, and I haven't heard this one too much, but I've heard it from at least a handful of guys. Some people define alpha by a combination of your intelligence and your overall leadership skills. How intelligent you are and your overall leadership skills. I don't agree with that, at least not 100%. So I'll start there. Okay, well now I'm gonna go with I'm gonna start with my definition. This is just only my definition. This ain't the universal definition. I'll preface by saying this: all of my definitions of well, number 1, if you've been watching my videos over the years, you know I don't just put men into 2 groups. I actually put men into 4 groups, which is total alpha male, an alpha male with a few beta traits, which is an original. That's not a general manosphere term. I pointed that out in 2 or 3 videos before. I came up with that hybrid category. I came up with that. Nobody was using that before me. Nobody. Yeah, alpha male with beta traits. That's a unique categorization that I came up with. Another hybrid category that I came up with myself is a beta male with a few alpha traits. Yeah, those 2 hybrid categories, alpha with beta traits and beta with alpha traits, I came up with that. Yes, I did. I know people get tired of me wanting to claim ownership and originality, ownership over certain terms and phrases and concepts, but I did. I came up with the alpha male with beta traits and the beta male with alpha traits. Matter of fact, if you Google right now, go to Google, put in alpha male with beta traits, you're going to see that my name is associated with the first hit that comes up. The first hit that comes up is associated with me. Like if you were just to put in alpha male in Google, you're going to get a bunch of wide variety of different hits. But if you put in alpha male with beta traits, the first hit that comes up is associated with me because I came up with that. Alpha male with beta traits and beta male with alpha traits. And then the final is a total beta male. What's the single biggest characteristic for me that separates each of those 4 characteristics? If I had to narrow down to one thing and one thing only, for me is how easily and how inexpensively you can score short-term, non-monogamous, casual sex from a woman. Yeah, there's a lot of characteristics that go into each of those 4 archetypes. But if I had to name the number 1 characteristic that separates the 4 is how easily and how inexpensively you can score short-term, non-monogamous sex from a woman. So, for example, total alpha male, what I also call a womanizing alpha male. Yeah, my nickname for a total alpha male is a womanizing alpha male. In order for me to categorize a guy as a womanizing alpha male, he can't be guilty of one of these three things. He cannot be guilty of one of these three things. Number one, if you got to spend a lot of money on a woman, you're not a womanizing alpha male in my book. You're not a womanizing alpha male. If you got to spend a lot of money on a woman in order to have multiple episodes of short-term non-monogamous casual sex with her, you're not a womanizing alpha male. Now, if you're spending like, I don't know, let's say $5 to $10 per episode, I ain't gonna hold that against you. I'd even be generous and say if you're spending anywhere from $15 to $25 per episode of casual sex you have with a woman, I ain't gonna necessarily hold that against you. But if you're spending an average of, let's say, at bare minimum, $50 or more per episode of casual sex you have with a woman, you got to spend a bare minimum of $50 or more per episode. To me, you disqualified from calling yourself a womanizing alpha male. Because if you're spending $50 or more, you're basically paying for sex. You're basically paying for sex. You basically get into the area of tricking. If you're a trick, to me, you ain't a womanizing alpha male, man. You're not. I don't care. I know some guys who are proponents of tricking. Now, I already got into one disagreement about that. I remember this brother who I haven't seen around in the last year or so, named Tony Maceo. He used to be on Mac City Limits podcast a lot. He was one of the first guys I got into like a spirited debate about what qualifies you for an alpha male and what qualifies you for a beta male. And the main meat of our debate was we were talking about a woman who's cheating on her husband with a guy on the side, which everybody knows I've been in that category. You know, I've been a lot of women's side dude. And Tony Maceo had made the argument, this was probably about 3 years ago. He made an argument, he said basically, and I'm paraphrasing the words, but essentially he said that he felt like if you have a married man and his wife is cheating on her with a dude on the side, that the husband was the alpha and the side dude was the beta. Because his argument was the side dude is getting the husband's leftovers. The side dude is getting the husband's leftovers. And my kind of argument was like, no. I feel just the opposite. I said in that situation, the side dude is the alpha because he ain't got to promise her any long-term commitment to get the pussy. He ain't got to spend no money on her to get the pussy. He ain't got to spend no time with her non-sexually to get the pussy. And because of those three things, to me, he's the alpha. Between the two of them, he's the alpha. Yeah, he ain't got to promise her no long-term commitment like the husband had to. He ain't got to spend no money on her like the husband has to. And he ain't got to spend no significant amount of time with her non-sexually like the husband has to. So I argue that the side dude is the alpha in that situation and the husband is the beta. And that was confirmed by a lot of guys in the manosphere when Will Smith had his entanglement situation. Was anybody referring to him as an alpha male, even though he was the husband? No. And a whole bunch of guys in the manosphere was referring to him as a beta male simp and all them similar type things. Nobody said, well, yeah, in that entanglement situation, Will Smith was the straight up alpha. Nobody was saying that. Nobody was saying that. But, yeah, so So that's the number one thing that disqualifies you in my book, within the parameters of my teachings and my coaching and my books. I'm not speaking for nobody else but me. That's the number one thing. If you got to spend a lot of money on a woman in order to motivate her to engage in one or more episodes of short-term non-monogamous casual sex with you, you're not a womanizing alpha. Number two, you have to, in some way, shape, or form, physically force a woman or coerce a woman to engage in short-term non-monogamous sex with you. That would include like raping a woman, date raping a woman, getting a woman sloppy drunk, or getting her high, altering her mind, her mental faculties, anything along them lines. Anything that would fall into the general category of coercion. Coercion. Yeah, anything you do that falls under the category of coercion, that automatically disqualifies you from being a womanizing alpha male. So the first category that disqualifies you is the category I've talked about quite a bit, financial negotiation. Financial negotiation, if you're going to indulge in some sort of financial negotiation like a sugar daddy would or a trick would, you're not a womanizing alpha male. At least not in my book, you're not. Second category that disqualifies, any type of coercion. Any type of coercion disqualifies you. Third thing that disqualifies you from being a womanizing alpha male, at least in my books, is if you got to lie to a woman or emotionally manipulate a woman and mislead a woman into believing that she's your girlfriend or your only lover, when in actuality, you're fucking at least two or more women in addition to her. Yeah, that disqualifies. If the only reason why a woman's engaging in sex with you is because she thinks you've led her to believe that she's essentially your girlfriend, but when in actuality, you got at least one or two additional women you fucking in addition to her, then you're not a womanizing alpha male. And I talk about all this in my book. I talk about it in at least two books. I talk about it in the Beta Male Revolution. I talk about it on the audiobook version of my book, Mode 1. And I talk about it most recently in one of the chapters, I think it's chapter 5. I talk about it in No Free Attention. Yeah, if you have to resort to financial negotiation, coercion, and or dishonesty and manipulation, you, in my book, you are not a womanizing alpha male. A womanizing alpha male is a guy that's able to score short-term, non-monogamous casual sex from a woman based on a combination of mainly three things: his looks, his degree of confidence and masculinity and sense of erotic dominance. Confidence, masculinity, and sense of erotic dominance, what I like to refer to as his masculine sex appeal, and arguably, most importantly, his mouthpiece. His mouthpiece. Looks, masculine sex appeal, mouthpiece. Them are the three things that a womanizing alpha male, in my book, qualifies a man to be categorized as a womanizing alpha male. Yep. And then the one other type of alpha male I have is a hybrid, is what I call an alpha male with beta traits. Alpha male with beta traits. Without getting into a lengthy description about that category of man, that's a man who, when it comes to casual sex with women, he's going to be very, very alpha. Whenever he engages in casual sex with women, he's going to be very, very alpha. But when he meets a woman that he wants to raise a family with and have as his wife or long-term girlfriend, fiance, or wife, then that's when some of his beta qualities will begin to emerge and reveal themselves. Is when he finds that one woman that he wants to, quote unquote, settle down with and raise a family with. That's when more of his beta male qualities are going to start rising to the surface. That's what I call an alpha male with beta traits. But going back to distinguishing an alpha, my definition of an alpha from other guys, I'm going to tackle the three things I've heard other guys describe as an alpha. One was intelligence and leadership skills. I've heard at least a handful of guys, they described an alpha male as a guy who's very intelligent and capable of being a leader of a group. A leader of a group. The type of guy that his leadership skills will motivate other people to follow him. Like if he was to start some type of movement or something, people would follow his leadership. That's what some people said defines what an alpha male is. Well, if that's the case, Barack Obama is one of the greatest alpha males that ever lived, as far as black men go. If that's the case, then Barack Obama is one of the greatest alpha males ever. But again, I've heard a lot of guys in the manosphere categorize Barack Obama as a beta male. I've heard people say, oh man, Barack Obama, he was a beta male, man. His wife, Michelle, was more alpha than him. I've heard quite a few guys say that, particularly guys who are conservatives, politically conservative. Yeah, they categorize him as beta male. So if you're going to say it's based on leadership skills, then you would have to say that Barack Obama is one of the greatest alphas ever. You would have to say pretty much every male politician out there is an alpha male. Would you actually argue that every male politician is an alpha male? Come on. Would you argue that every minister or pastor of a church, most ministers are considered leaders in their communities. Would you say all ministers are alpha males? I don't. Now, in fairness, again, I will say, I think a man's intelligence and a man's leadership skills can no doubt contribute in some way to women perceiving him as being an alpha. Those qualities can contribute, but by those qualities alone, no, do not automatically qualify a man for being alpha. I give you a perfect example, man. Bill Clinton. Perfect example, Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton, if you study Bill Clinton, man, when it comes to just being a politician, he was very alpha. Bill Clinton was very alpha when it comes to just being a politician. But when it came to his relationship with his wife, Hillary, would you say he was real alpha? As much respect I got for Bill Clinton, nah, bruh, no. Ha! In many ways, Hillary was more alpha than Bill was. Hillary was more alpha than Bill was. So no. So that's one category that deviates from mine, is that some guys have said an alpha male is a guy who has an exceptionally high degree of intelligence, knowledge, and leadership skills. Intelligence, knowledge, and leadership skills. No. Again, I'm going to say those three things should be totally ignored. I would never, ever suggest that. I think those three things can contribute to a man being categorized as an alpha male, but by themselves, no. Second area I disagree with men is men who say that in order to be alpha, considered an alpha male, you have to have a high degree of career success, financial success, and overall business success. No. That ain't got nothing to do with you being alpha. That ain't got nothing. I would say that ain't got nothing to do with you being alpha. I mean, almost like zero. That ain't got shit. Dude, again, when I say alpha, I'm talking about being alpha with women. Dude, over the course of my life, I've known a lot of guys who had a high degree of career success and financial success that that had a low degree of success with women. Like, basically, they couldn't get casual sex pussy without paying for it. They couldn't get casual sex pussy without paying for it. Without being either a sugar baby, a sugar daddy, and or a trick. Here's my thing. If the only way you can get women to agree to engage in one or more episodes of short-term, non-monogamous casual sex with you is to pay women money for it, you ain't no alpha. Period. In the story. You ain't no alpha, man. In my book. In your own book, you can say they are. In my book, in Alan Roger Currie, in any of my books, I don't consider nobody in that category alpha. Straight up. I don't consider nobody in that category alpha. Like, for example, I remember when I was young, starting with age, 16, 17, 18. I noticed a lot of my male friends, they would get impressed if they saw a guy driving a real nice car, wearing a bunch of, expensive jewelry, and he had 2 or 3 women in his company. And I would hear my male friends say stuff like, man, I can't wait to be rich so I could pull women like that. See, I was one of the few guys that was always different than that group of guys. I never have been impressed by a guy who pulled women because of money, ever. That's real talk. I've never, ever been impressed by a guy who pulled a lot of women solely and specifically because of how much money he had or how many expensive material possessions he had. That never impressed me, man, ever. I ain't never looked at a guy, whether he was in my neighborhood, whether he was a famous celebrity. I never looked at a guy, like say he was accompanied by 2 women, 3 women, 4 women, 5 women, and I could tell that the main reason those women were in his company was because he had big rolls of cash. That shit never impressed me, man. Never impressed. I'm more impressed by just the opposite, man. If I know that a motherfucker's broke, unemployed, don't even have a car, and that guy's still pulling 6s, 7s, 8s, and 9s, that's when you're gonna impress me. That's when I'm gonna be like, oh shit, that's a bad motherfucker right there. I'm not even joking, man. I'm serious. That's when Alan Roger Currie would be impressed. If I see a motherfucker that's broke, unemployed, no car, and he's still regularly pulling women who are no lower than a 6 on a scale from 1 to 10 and as high as like a 9 or even a 10, that's when you're going to, that's when I'm going to be like, oh, that dude's a bad motherfucker right there. and some of that is biased because honestly, I've been in that category before. And y'all should know from my previous videos, I've been in that category before. I can name times when I was in my 20s and to a slightly lesser extent in my 30s when I was broke in between jobs, didn't really have no money in the bank. Sometimes I didn't have a car. I had to use either one of my father's second cars or my brother would let me borrow his car or something. I didn't have my own car. And I was still fucking 6, 7s, 8s, and 9s, maybe even 1 or 2 10s. Real talk. Real talk. Yeah, but I've known other guys, not just me, but I've known other guys I've known over the years who didn't really have no money, didn't have no expensive material possessions, but yet they used to pull quality, good-looking, sexy women all the time. So, yeah, man, I ain't never been impressed by a guy, man, who has to rely on money and material possessions in order to pull his women, man. That's never impressed me, man, ever. Never. Nah, man. So anyway, yeah, that's, for me, that's way there. I've always said, man, here's what I've said repeatedly, and I'm going to say it again. When it comes to motivating a woman to become your wife or some other type of long-term romantic companion, I do think career success and financial success has its place. So I don't totally disregard the importance of career success and financial success when it comes to marriage, cohabitation, or just long-term relationships in general. Although I've known some guys who didn't have career success and financial success. Matter of fact, I'm not going to say his name, but most of y'all going to know what I'm talking about. I know a dating coach who pulled a woman who was making six figures when he was working at Chuck E. Cheese, earning just over minimum wage. Yeah, that's kind of his claim to fame. He pulled a woman that was making six figures with an oil company while he had a job that was paying him just a little bit more than the minimum wage. And he's married to her. I ain't going to say the name, but y'all should be able to figure out who that is. That's kind of like his claim to fame as a dating coach. You could almost loosely categorize him as a male gold digger. Yeah, he was able to pull a high-end woman who was making way more money than him. And I've known a few guys like that. Matter of fact, I used to be in that category. When I was in LA, I told y'all on some previous videos that there was at least 2 times when I lived in Los Angeles and almost 3 times. I was on the verge of it being 3 times. But at least twice, I had essentially what would be known as a sugar mama. Yeah, I had a sugar mama, man. I was like what's known as a kept man. A kept man is the male equivalent to a woman being a sugar baby. Yeah, I was a kept man for at least 2 women when I lived in LA. And yeah, man, women was paying my bills, buying me clothes, let me use their cars, everything, man. Yeah, dude. So my point was, even when it comes to some long-term relationships, a man doesn't always have to be the breadwinner, but in most cases, they usually are. But what I was going to say is, definitely for casual sex, if you're talking about casual sex, I've always said this for over the last 20, 30 years, man. Career success and financial success don't mean shit when it comes to pulling women for casual sex. I would say this, anybody who disagrees with me on that, you don't really know women. That's all I'm going to say. You don't really know women. You don't really know women. Dude, I used to fuck married women and their husbands was making way more money than me. So if money is a mandatory prerequisite for casual sex, how come I was able to fuck women and their boyfriends, fiancés, and husbands was making 6 figures and in at least 1 or 2 cases, 7 figures? Why? Why? Y'all know about the story I've told a bunch of times? The Caucasian woman I used to fuck in LA, grad student at UCLA, her fiance was making just under $1 million a year, man. And I was fucking her without spending even $5 on her. So that lets you know right there, man, you don't need no money for casual sex. You don't need no money for casual sex, man. I fucked a lot of women who were 7, 8s, and 9s without spending no money on them. That's real. I fucked not so much in my older years, well, even few times in my older years, but definitely in my 20s and 30s, shit, I fucked a lot of 7, 8s, and 9s without the benefit of having money. A lot of them. Shit, when it comes to casual sex, man, I'm telling you this, career success and financial success is way overrated. It's way overrated. See, you gotta understand, man. I'll give you an example, man. I remember one time when as you guys know, I spoke in London in November 2010. And while I was in London, I had this guy approach me and propose. He wanted me to speak to some guys in Switzerland. He said, Alan, I want you to speak to some guys in Switzerland. And I'll pay you some nice money. And whenever somebody invites me to do a speaking engagement, I always want to know what the general clientele is going, age-wise, race-wise, and a few other things I want to know. So I started asking questions. I said, like, what type of guys would I be speaking in front of? And he said at least 1/3 of the guys you would be speaking in front of would be millionaires. And I said, really? And I said, that's interesting. Because see, here in the USA, we tend to naturally assume, and the key word is assume, we tend to assume that if a guy's a millionaire, he ain't got no problem pulling women. That's one mistake. If nowhere else in the world, definitely here in the United States, we tend to assume that if you're a guy that's a millionaire, that you really don't have no problems pulling women. But that ain't necessarily true. Not only would I say that's not necessarily true, it definitely ain't true in a lot of places in the world, but even here in the United States, that ain't necessarily true. But yeah, what this guy went on to say, he said, there's a lot of guys in Switzerland that are millionaires, but they're essentially like tech nerds, is what he called them. Tech nerds. He said a lot of them are what would be called tech nerds. And he said, Alan, I think you and I both know when a guy's a tech nerd, that typically means he's lacking when it comes to his social skills, which generally is true. There's exceptions to that, but I would say generally speaking, see, you could have a guy, let's call him Herbert. You could have a guy named Herbert who knows computers. When it comes to stuff to do with computers and computer software, he's like the man. He could be in a category of like a Bill Gates or a Steve Jobs. He could be some kind of wizard. But just because he's a computer wizard and his computer wizardry caused him to make a lot of money, that don't necessarily mean he has top-notch social skills, particularly with women. That don't mean he got top-notch social skills. So, and see, that's the thing that has changed in modern day society. I don't want to get on a long digression, but compared to, say, like, I don't know, 100 years ago or so, see, in modern day society, you got a lot of guys who, for lack of a better term, are tech nerds. Tech nerds, high technology nerd and geek types, that a lot of them have amassed a lot of money, but they still have below average social skills. A lot of my clients, quite frankly, are in that category. I would say no less than probably like 25 to 30% of my clients are actually in that category. Like I remember 3 years ago, I went to San Francisco. Some of y'all, if y'all long time followers, probably remember that. It was in late February of 2018. I worked with 2 clients in San Francisco. Both of those clients in San Francisco were in that category. The 2 clients I worked with in San Francisco were both in that category. They were basically, again, for lack of a better categorization, they were tech nerds. Yeah, and I was helping them with their social skills and their conversation skills. Yeah, they were tech nerds, man. Both of them made a lot of money. They made a lot of money. Both of them. I wouldn't go necessarily as far as call them just flat out rich, but they were both making a lot of money. But yeah, man, so just because you got money, man, and a great career does not necessarily qualify you to be any woman's alpha male. I ain't got nothing to do with you being an alpha male in the eyes of a woman. Now, in their world, business-wise, in the world of computer technology, computer software technology, and that type of thing, in the business world, those guys are probably looked at as alphas. Like Bill Gates would be the best example, or the late, great Steve Jobs. Bill Gates would be looked at as an alpha male as it relates to his knowledge and insight as it relates to computer software technology. But come on, man. Bill Gates ain't no woman's alpha male. He wouldn't be able to score no casual sex for free. He would have to pay for it. He wouldn't be able to score no casual sex for free. Again, that's for me. That's the number one criteria I evaluated alpha male by, is how easily and how inexpensively you're able to score episodes of short-term, non-monogamous casual sex. How easily and how inexpensively you're able to score one or more episodes of short-term, non-monogamous casual sex. Again, my 3 disqualifiers. If you have to resort to some form of financial negotiation in order to score casual sex for a woman, you're disqualified from my categorization of a womanizing alpha. if you have to resort to some form of coercion or physical force, you're automatically disqualified. And the third thing, if you got to resort to lying to women and misleading and manipulating women, basically tricking women into believing that they're your girlfriend, when in actuality, you're fucking at least one woman in addition to that woman, that disqualifies you. Can't be a liar or manipulator and call yourself a womanizing alpha male. A true womanizing alpha male in Alan Roger Currie's book is a guy who can get women to have casual sex with him by a combination of his looks, his masculine sex appeal, and arguably most importantly, his mouthpiece. His looks, his masculine sex appeal, and his mouthpiece. And the final thing that disqualifies, the final category, I talked about some guys describe alpha male, they categorize alpha male based on a combination of his level of intelligence, knowledge, and leadership skills. Some other guys I've heard categorize guys alpha male based on his career success, financial success, and business success. The final of the three categories I've heard guys is, and again, I talked about this at the 2018-21 convention, is a combination of how tall a guy is, how muscular a guy is, and or how good his hand-to-hand fighting skills are. That's what I've heard some guys categorize as an alpha male. They'll say, if a guy is tall and he's muscular and he's good at fighting like boxing or mixed martial arts, then he's automatically an alpha male. No, he's not. No, he's not. No, not in my book he's not. Not in my book he's not. Why? Because I've known guys that had one or more of those three characteristics that when they were in the company of their wife, fiance, or girlfriend, they acted like bitches. They acted like straight up bitches. Just off the top of my head, man, I can think of a bunch of guys. I can think of guys, a small percentage of guys I went to high school with that were like that, guys I went to college with that were like that, and guys I've just known throughout the course of my adult life who were like that. They were either tall, muscular, or had above average to exceptional fighting skills. So that made them alpha when it came to their interactions with other men. So I'll go ahead and concede that when it came to their interactions with other men, they very frequently tended to be categorized as alpha. But when it came to dealing with women, man, they had wives, fiancés, and girlfriends that used to boss them around all the time. Talk to them in a condescending manner all the time. To me, you ain't alpha. And again, if you ain't able to score casual sex for free, you ain't alpha. I don't care how well you can fight. I don't care how well you can fight. Like, I know, quite frankly, if you really know women, I know a lot of women who are actually turned off by guys who are like, say, boxers or stuff, because they look at them as bullies. A lot of women don't like bullies. A lot of women don't like pugilistic activities, period. They don't like that. There's some women who do. Some women do get off on guys who are like, as far as when it comes to hand-to-hand combat, get off on guys who are like, say, boxers or mixed martial arts. But I know an equal, if not greater number of women that they can't stand guys like that. That turns them off. Same with muscularity. They did a survey one time, I think it was in Playboy magazine, and they were talking about male strippers, and they had this picture of all these really super muscular, think of Arnold Schwarzenegger in his heyday. They had a bunch of guys like that, and they were interviewing these women, and interesting enough, the women were like, oh, that's a turnoff. I don't want a guy that muscular. That ain't sexy. That's a turnoff. You notice, I don't know if you guys, not that most guys pay attention to male strippers, but honestly, if you were to pay attention, you would notice that starting with, say, the 70s, 1970s up until now, the look of male strippers has changed. They did an article about this. I forget the magazine. There was an article that talked about how, did anybody see the movie with Brad Pitt called Fight Club? if you saw Fight Club, if you remember Brad Pitt's physique in Fight Club, Brad Pitt had a physique that was lean and muscular. It wasn't bulky and muscular. It was lean and muscular. Kind of like Bruce Lee in his heyday. Had a physique that was lean and muscular. That's actually, in this article I was reading in Playboy, that's what the women said that they prefer when it comes to male strippers. They said, we like guys who are more lean and muscular as opposed to like big and bulky and muscular. A lot of women don't like that big, bulky looking type muscular. That's a turnoff for a lot of women. Yeah, they like a guy that's... And then the height thing, that's one of the things I talked about in my live stream. I forget how we got on the subject of that, but I was saying that I said a lot of times height can, contribute to a guy being considered more desirable by women. But I said not all the time, because like I'll use myself for example. Again, to bring up the fact that I don't like to always bring up this fact, but it's inevitable. But as you get, again, when I was between roughly 17 and 37, I had sex with approximately 40 women that were either married, engaged to be married, or had a long-term boyfriend. I would say no less than 40% of those women had boyfriends, fiancés, or husbands that were taller than me. Some were taller than me by maybe an inch or two, and there was at least a handful that were way taller than me. Like I told this story on a previous video, I think it was either last year, 2019. I remember when I was 25, I used to fuck this woman who was cohabitating with a guy. She had a live-in boyfriend. And through the course of us fucking, one time she showed me a picture of her boyfriend. Her boyfriend was about 6'4". I'm like 5'11". Actually, I'm just under 5'11". I'm like 5'10 and 3/4, but I always say 5'11". Yeah, I'm about 5'11". Her live-in boyfriend was like 6'4" and fairly muscular. But yet she was cheating on him with me, and I was roughly 5 inches shorter than her live-in boyfriend. Yeah, she told me. The two things she told me that she preferred about me over her boyfriend, she said, Ellen, you're way more dominant than my boyfriend is. And see, a lot of people think taller guys are automatically more dominant than guys who are shorter than them. Oh, that's way the fuck. That's way the fuck false. I know from total experience, that's way the fuck false. That's way the fuck false. And anyway, going back to this particular woman, that's what she said. She was like, my boyfriend, he's more of a she called him a gentle giant type. She said he's more of a gentle giant type. She said he's not as dominant as you, and she said he's not as verbally kinky as you. And a lot of women have told me that when they were comparing me to either their boyfriend, fiance, or husband. Among other things, they would usually say, Alan, some would just flat out say, you a better fuck than my boyfriend, fiance, or husband. And beyond that, they would say, you're more dominant than my boyfriend, fiance, or husband is. You're more verbally kinky and freaky than my boyfriend, fiance, or husband is. But yeah, so I'm not going to totally disregard height, but it doesn't, just because you're tall, like I got a cousin who's probably about 6'3", 6'4". If I was to introduce guys to my cousin, he is a very soft-spoken guy. He's like a semi-nerd type guy. Real soft-spoken. He ain't yeah, so just because you're tall does not automatically make you alpha and or dominant. Same with muscularity. Just because you're muscular does not... Lighthearted quick story about that. I remember when I first moved to LA, I was working out at this club, and there was this brother in the health club with me. He was real dark skinned, black dude, dark skinned, shaven head with a goatee. If you were just to look at him, you would think this dude was the most hardest dude around, man. He just looked like, man, I'd kick your ass. You say anything wrong to me. He kind of looked like he had that type of personality. Man, once he opened his mouth, man, he sounds so effeminate, man. He was like effeminate as fuck. He was like flaming effeminate. And you would have never guessed that just looking at him, dude. But yeah, as soon as he opened his mouth, I ended up asking him about some weights. Man, his whole voice was like just real, like effeminate. So, and again, this dude had muscles on top of muscles. So all that to say, yeah, my definition and description of what makes a man an alpha male tends to be different than a lot of guys in the manosphere. You know, again, a lot of other guys, they attribute alphaness to your level of intelligence, knowledge, and leadership skills. Other guys attribute it to your degree of career success and financial success. Other guys attribute it to how tall you are, how muscular you are, or how good your fighting skills are. For me, none of those is the key factor. If I had to narrow it down to just one characteristic, the thing I define as an alpha male versus a beta male is how easy and inexpensively are you able to score one or more episodes of short-term, non-monogamous casual sex from a woman. How easily and how inexpensively are you able to score one or more episodes of short-term, non-monogamous casual sex from a woman? In a nutshell, if the only way you could get women to have casual sex with you is by spending money on women, number one is by spending money on them. Number two is by physically forcing them or getting them drunk or high. And number three is by lying to them and misleading them into believing that they're your girlfriend when they're actually not. Then you ain't no alpha in my book. You ain't no alpha, man. You ain't no alpha, man. True alphas, man, are guys that are able to score casual sex by a combination of their looks, their masculine sex appeal, and probably most importantly, their smooth and seductive mouthpiece. That's all I got for you.
Yes, sir.
Say it again.
Yes, sir.
Who's the king?
Alan, you're the king.
Say it again.
Alan, you're the king. You're dominating me.
Say it again.
Alan, you're dominating me right now. Mode 1.
Mode 1.
Daddy, can I go, please? You're the king.
Say it again.
Oh, you're the fucking king. Yes. Yes. Yes.
You're the king, Alan.
AKA the king of verbal seduction. You know, it's the tone of your voice, how seductive your intonations are, the vibrations that you could just reach out over the phone lines and stroke a woman's breast just by the sound of your voice, how you could make her pussy so wet just by the sound of your voice. That's actually very hot.
So you said my show was what?
I said your show is powerful.
Oh, say it again.
Your show is powerful.
I bet the king would fuck me really good.
Who's the king?
Alan Roger Currie.
Oh, yeah. Who's the king?
Alan Roger Currie. The king.
The king.
The king.
I have to agree with you on the communication piece, because I actually did take a session with Alan Roger Currie, and he gave me a line that I did not think was going to work, and it worked. And I was like, what the fuck?
Oh my God!
Man, he's the master. He's the master of the verbal seduction. He got that communication piece down pat.
It really worked. Yeah. It just simply worked, and I just didn't think it was going to work at all.
Some guys have natural handles. Some guys have a better natural shot, but you can always improve your shot. And sex is damn sure something you can fucking learn. Look, dude, you want to learn how to talk better? I'm hiring Alan Roger Currie to get my dirty talk game on. Because it's always been something I want to get better at.
Verbal seduction, man. I'm like, clearly, this guy's the Michael Jordan of seduction. Like, come on now.